Hey there, fellow citizen of the internet. Welcome to the Moses Kabandana Podcast. Today, I have with me Austin Holmes. And, welcome to the Moses Kabandana Podcast, Austin.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome, awesome. So let everybody know what the overarching theme here that we're gonna be talking about here.
Yeah, I guess it's really just my story um, of how I landed here doing what I'm doing, working with my wife and trying to build a business together and the backstory behind
Okay,
it.
awesome. And so, what is it that you're working on, you and your wife?
Yeah, so my wife had started her company a couple years before I met her. Publicity for Good is the name of that. And now I work with her in that on the operations front, as well as we have a separate company, Signal Raptor, that is a SaaS product, really service first focused, and we're building that out, trying to keep up with the times.
Mm, mm, mm. Okay. How many people in your circle do you know that work with their spouse?
Oh, I I knew zero when we started this, uh,
Mm, mm.
because it is such a challenge. Working together. We definitely have
Yeah.
three or four other couples now that we know that work together, and it's it's a learning curve certainly. So
Yeah, yeah. And you have a couple little ones, is that true?
yeah, so we just had our third, and it's a handful. Heather was traveling last week, and so I was home alone with the kids, which was a lot while working. So, but it's good.
Okay. Wow. So a business, you're married, you got a couple of kids. That each one of those things alone is a well, let's say it comes with its own load,
Right.
to put it mildly, and so that's where you are today. Um, what's been your journey? Where were you born? How many kids?
So
How many siblings do you have? Like, what was the origin story there?
I have one brother. He's actually in North Carolina as well. We had
Older?
lived here. Yeah, he's 2.5 years older than me. Uh,
Okay.
we had lived in North Carolina for several years when we were younger, but we were both born and started growing up in Florida. Then we moved to North Carolina for a while, and my brother was actually graduating high school at that point, so he more or less stayed in North Carolina. I went back to Florida though, and ended up playing on a championship team in high school for football with the famous Tim Tebow, which was awesome. And I think that was a huge mindset shift, being around like such a high level of performance and being on a team environment. I loved it, and that was my first exposure to kind of um, high achieving individuals. So
Hmm.
that that was an awesome experience. I moved on, attended the University of Central Florida, started out engineering, shifted to business. I did not want to sit
Hmm.
at a desk and do calculations for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
So shifted over to business, loved it. Um, and then at the end of school, after graduating, I ended up joining the military. I went, uh, looked at all the special operations programs across all of the branches, chose Navy because of just better places to be stationed. I thought,
Hmm.
San Diego and Virginia and Florida sounded better than Kansas or wherever. I don't even know where the other ones are, but
Yeah.
had a really good experience there. Became an EOD tech and did that for about 7 years. Went on after or met Heather, my wife, and started working with her towards the tail end of that. Went full time after exiting the military in 2019, and had we actually set off on a nomadic adventure traveling around the United States in our Airstream. For about 2 years, we traveled full time, including a short gap of about 4 months where we were stationary because a little thing called COVID happened, and it
Hmm.
was
Hmm.
a little more difficult to travel. But
Yeah.
and then we found our home. part of that journey was to find out where we wanted to live. And the first question we asked was beach or mountains, and we said mountains. So we looked pretty much everywhere that is not too cold for a Florida boy, but we found some amazing spots and traveled like just for fun too. A lot of business stuff along the way. Found our home in North Carolina, Morganton. It's a small town right at the edge of the mountains in between Asheville and Charlotte, and we love it here. I think we've been here going on 3 years, or is it 4? Like, it's hard to keep track. It's
Yeah,
pretty wild.
yeah.
So yeah, we love it.
Okay, so North Carolina, Florida, high school, football. Learned about high performance, or at least you got some taste of what it's like to work with high performance individuals. College comes around. You're not the desk sitting math type, or it doesn't take you the right way. So you go. Which way did you go? Business. You go business route.
Yeah,
You go business route. Yep.
Yeah.
And then the military knocks on your door. You said, "Yes, sir. Here I am." And then you did some nomadic life along the way. Okay. This there's a lot of good stuff.
So
Yeah. Wow. So how would you describe the high performance environment that you touched on in high school, right, on the football team, and how does that? Yeah, go ahead.
I had played for 2 years in North Carolina before moving to Florida, and I saw kind of that level, and I thought it was a really good program. The coaches pushed us, like, we were competitive and we wanted to win. And I thought I was in decent shape as well. I was also a track athlete, so I was multi-season athlete. But
Yeah.
moving to that program in Florida, at Nice is the name of the school, that was almost a wake-up call to see how much harder you could work, how much more effort you could put in, how much more planning you could put into your game plan. And it was amazing the results from that. Like, we dominated people for the most part. We lost 2 games. The first one was the first ESPN high school televised football game, which was interesting.
Wow.
And then the second one was against our rivals, who we always like had a close game with, and just did not come out on top. And they were in a different division than us, and so they ended up winning states as well the same year. So also a very, very good team. Pretty crazy for 2 teams from the same county to win states.
Yeah.
Same year, so.
Now, to participate in sports like this at this level, where did that discipline come from? Was that something that was just innate to you? Did your parents push you like left and right? Like how did you fall into that?
But both my brother and I grew up playing various sports, basketball, baseball, and so we were involved in athletics for most of our life, and I think we both loved it. I that's a massive part of it. The other kind of condition that our parents gave us is you can play a sport or you can work. And my brother worked a little bit, but I was just always playing sports. And I really did love it. I loved the team environment, even if I didn't recognize it so clearly then, like looking back, yeah, that was a huge part of it. Like when we moved to Florida, we moved in the summer, and so I had all these summer workouts, got to know the whole football team, and by the time school started, I had 50 friends, and so it's pretty powerful being on a team, working hard, getting in the trenches together, and bonding with people.
So outside of the school environment, let's say during summer, was that a terrible time then, or because like you're not part of the sports, and sports were like so integral to your like how you spent your time, and then all of a sudden you have like 3 months of no sports. Like how did you handle summers?
Well, we did. At least in high school. We'd go in for summer workouts for football in preparation for the fall season. So we did get exposure. I don't know if we did that in North Carolina. I can't remember. But for those 2 summers that I was in Florida, yeah, it was a lot of 2-a-days. So we'd go in, do workouts in the morning, and then come back later and do field sessions in the afternoon. And it shows you can do more. It's about focus and discipline, like you said.
Focus and okay. So that's a giant umbrella term that gets thrown around a lot, left and right, in discipline, right? But from what I'm finding, there's the fluff part of it, right? Like we need to be disciplined, dedication, motivation, all this fluff. But when it actually comes down to it, discipline is very difficult. So like, what if you are trying to take on a new endeavor, for example, or pick up a new sport, or maybe there's like a new team that you really need to beat, and you need to have like a very dedicated schedule or regiment, and you need to be disciplined in order to have the outcome. Like, what is your approach, right, to I guess instilling discipline? I don't know how to phrase this question, because I just know that there's a huge distance between like what we mean when we say discipline and the actual implementation of the different steps that it takes until you're disciplined in something.
I think the simple definition, if we want to start by defining it, of discipline is just doing the right thing over and over. And I think that's how you build discipline, is you repeat over and over. And I've seen this on the sports side, on the military side, and now in business, where if you do the right action over and over and over again, that is all discipline really is. Building the desire to do that, I think that's where a lot of people are challenged. And there's so many different mechanisms for that. A lot of people talk about routine. That's a good starting point. But a lot of that stuff can actually get in the way of you focusing on doing only the right thing, because you might be doing a lot of things to build that routine. Another one is accountability, having somebody to just hold you accountable to, and that can be a conversation. On the sports world, it was the other guys in the position, plus a little bit of competition to try and be number one. In the military, the accountability comes from the chain of command. Like, right. You're legally held to doing the right thing. The business form of it that I think is great is community. There's a lot of variations that can take, but like actually a couple of those couples that I had talked about earlier, with couples who work together, they also are some of the people that we trust to hold us accountable.
Okay, so let's dive into this whole entrepreneurial thing. So I'm probably gonna phrase this terribly, so bear with me. But first of all, like, did you have examples in your life of like where people, grandparents, parents, were they starting businesses? Was the entrepreneurial mindset a part of your peers? Like how did you think that you could set out to start a business, and because it's something that like everyone talks about, I want to start a business, but to actually take the first step and actually start one, and then going through the legal establishments of your, like the legal steps to establish your business, and then actually provide the good and or service, that's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different language there. So like, I guess plainly put, who the hell did you think that you were to actually start one, right? And were there any, let's say, quote unquote, haters, right? That or obstacles that were in your way?
I haven't had a whole lot of haters, which some people will say have you done anything significant? Working on that. For my first exposure to business, it was somebody at our church in North Carolina. He had a
Mm.
salsa company. Like he had this salsa
Oh.
recipe, made a bunch of salsa, put it in jars, and so I actually helped him with selling that and taking it to distributors. And
Mm.
that was really my first experience.
Mm.
Um, I think a couple of my grandparents were involved in business to some extent. Like my uh, grandmother was a realtor, and I know one of my grandfathers, I can't even remember which one,
Mm.
uh,
Yep. Yep.
had some entrepreneurial tendencies as well. Uh, but no, my dad is or was an architect at the same company for like 44 years. And so he
Mm.
started with that company more or less as a startup. There were 20, 25 people, and now there's something
Yeah.
like a $3 billion company. So he grew with them that entire time. And so I
Yeah.
saw the growth of a company from a different perspective, though. Um,
Mm. Mm.
I was exposed a lot more to business. A couple of my friends in college had or started businesses, and that was a huge shift. So college is
Okay.
really where I made the decision. Hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, and that
Mm.
persisted. Even though I did end up going to join the military, I knew that I wanted to end up in business. I didn't know exactly what that looked like, but that was always the goal. And actually, even before I met Heather, uh, maybe a year before that, I had a roommate and I had started a business with him, and it was super simple. And it was just building, or yeah, we did have to build them, but it was table
Mm.
rentals for weddings, so like the farmhouse style tables.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and you know that was running. It gave me a couple extra dollars, but
Mm.
it's it's a lot of work, and seeing like how good of a business model Heather had compared to that. I did
Mm.
stop doing that after I left the Navy. So
Mm. Mm. Okay. Okay. Well, so I asked that question because it's like um this whole idea of being your own boss is like thrown at us left and right. Uh, but it's a it's one of those things that um like you really have to have a certain type of aptitude, right, to do, at least I feel, right. So sometimes I question myself, like, dude, because I have a business, I just started one like 5 months ago, and every once in a while, like every few weeks, I'll pause and I'm like, dude, who the hell you think you are to actually start something, right? And then the imposter syndrome, enters the mind and whatnot. Especially if like there's, let's say, you don't have like that many examples of people starting businesses left and right. So that's why I asked it. So military and then transferring to entrepreneurship, for those that are listening that have the same journey, or that have gone through the military and are thinking about jumping onto the entrepreneurial bandwagon, I suppose. What would you say is one of the one of the biggest obstacles that would run into?
Uh, that is a great question. A lot of people kind of start their side hustle first. Um, it's a
Hmm.
lot harder to do that in the military because it's not a 40-hour a week job that you can take, 5 to 9 and or 9 to 5,
Hmm.
something like that. Your hours on the front in the beginning of the day. You still do have time, and that's how I built the table business. But I also had a partner, um, and that time can be more limited in the military. And then you also have like periods where you're on deployment, where you're overseas, sometimes not even with communication back home. So
Hmm. Hmm.
that's a challenge. And if you're doing that route, there's a couple options. um, Real estate is really a business. Like there's several sides to real estate, of course, and different pathways you can choose. But that is a tried and true way of getting yourself into business. And there's a lot of lessons to learn about how to manage a business through real estate. So that is definitely a pathway that you can take. For the other end of it, I would go digital. There are so many opportunities in the digital space. Even if you're just learning what you're going to do, spending that time while you're still in to learn the skill sets and figure out like, okay, this is how it works. I actually have a friend who is either, I don't know exactly when he's getting out, but he's going to be out of the military shortly if he isn't already. And that's what he did. He took a training course, set himself up, got the website, got the LLC, I assume, and now has that opportunity to move forward with that career. And it's working for himself. So
Do you think that anybody can start a business?
I kind of agree with Andy Frisell on this of business ownership is not for most people. Probably 80-20 rule. I don't know. That's just throwing a number out there, but it's stressful. So you should be able to handle stress. Otherwise you are going to burn out very, very quickly. That's actually a really nice part about working with your spouse is you get that balance where you have somebody who understands when you're stressed because they see everything. And
right.
most of the time when one of us is stressed, the other one's fine and they can fill the gaps and also provide encouragement. So there's a lot of benefits to working with your spouse. I'll say that. It is challenging. But the sorry, what was the question again?
I missed it, but you did touch on something that was interesting, which was stress and burnout. And I don't want to skip over that too fast. Can you elaborate on like well, stress management? I mean, it's a huge umbrella topic in business, but since you have your hands dirty, so to speak, how do you manage stress in the work environment?
Well, I think I'm naturally good at it to begin with, which is kind of a cheat code. Then I had the opportunity to learn about explosives and dealing with very high stress situations in the military. As part of the EOD community, like you have to be able to handle stress because you're dealing with life and death situations where people can die very easily. So the training pipeline is a huge asset in that. It's kind of a type of discipline as well. If we're going back to that of the more you were in those situations, the more you know how to handle them. And if you can take the half second to step back from the situation and look and say, okay, this is what's actually going on. It was like this thing I dealt with in the past. How did I handle that? Did it go poorly? Did it go well? All right, let's try and go with one that went well. And again, that's an aspect of discipline where you're just building a habit of taking a step back, taking a breath. There's some super fundamental things that I think society at large doesn't do very well. And that's as simple as drinking water, spending time in reflection, whatever that looks like for you, physical activity. Like these are the really simple ways to mitigate stress. And I would encourage anybody, if they are feeling stressed, take a look at those and say, hey, is my diet right? Am I drinking enough water? Do I have my electrolytes? If you want to go deep down that rabbit hole, go watch Huberman or somebody like that. So.
Yeah. No, those are some pretty good nuggets there. And so one of the ways that I handle stress is I like to think, when it is true, that I've been here before. So for example, let's say it was like last week, no, hell, like 2 days ago, I was trying to create this automation system to automate my text messaging and whatnot, so that when clients reach out, there's a text messaging automation that goes behind that. so I've never said this out before. I didn't even know that this was a thing, you know. So I finally get it all going, and like tomorrow I'm launching a podcast training workshop, and so I'm on a time crunch, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, this whole taxing thing needs to go through a government approval process. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I launch.
A2P10 or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm like, I launch tomorrow. Like, what's all this? But I had to kind of pause. Like, okay, I've never been in this situation per se, right? But I've been here before where I'm in a time crunch and something needs to happen and it's not happening. Okay, so even though this particular situation is new, but the format is the same. It has happened before, and so I think that's what you are alluding to when you say just pause, take a step back, see how you've handled a similar situation before, and so but that talks to your ability to recall history, your own story, and so what I'm trying to get to here is in your time in the military, what would you say was like one of the biggest contributing factors to your success in the business world within the confines of stress management? I think you already touched on it, but I want to
Oh,
touch on it last
you,
time. Yeah.
you threw stress management in at the end, and it threw me off. I was like, oh, I have some stuff for that. No, on the stress management piece, like I said, the training pipeline, going
Yep.
through the drills. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess how you could relate that to the business world would be, find somebody who's been there, and rely on them, by
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's been there, somebody who is 20 years down the road in business from you, who has what you want. That is a great resource. A lot of times it's called a mentor, but like just having somebody that you can go to ask those questions, like, hey, what do I do in this situation? Um, and they've already lived it. So even if you don't understand the situation, and are stressed out by it, like there's somebody who's been through it before. Like there's not a whole lot of new stuff going on.
Right.
A, Another kind of stress management one would be your team. Having somebody to rely on takes a massive amount of mental energy and puts it back into your bank. Having that team member take over tasks, and finding somebody who actually takes ownership. Can I curse on here?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Of course.
the phrase that we use in the military now we use on our team is own your shit. So
Mm,
that's what I go with, to
mm,
kind of represent that idea of somebody handling what they're, or taking responsibility for the things that they need to do. Um, it, I don't know where I heard this, but I love the concept of don't put fault on others and don't put fault on yourself. Just take responsibility. And so
mm.
that's another kind of principle that I try and help guide our team with. So
Mm, mm. So one of the backbones of entrepreneurship is to own your shit. Okay. Uh,
yeah,
I think I should have a shirt that says that. The second tentacle here that I wanted to tackle was burnout. Right. How do you do you avoid burnout, or like are there times that you just brace for impact and just that burnout is gonna be around the corner, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Like how do you approach
yeah.
this?
So this is an interesting story of sometime in 21, I think. I just stepped
Mm.
away from the business, and I was gone for about 18 months. Uh, Not
Wow.
entirely, but like
Yeah.
I did the financial stuff, and occasionally I'd help here or
Mm-hmm.
there. And the business suffered for it. That is the result of burnout. Um, and in that case, like it was me and Heather had to figure out how to work together again.
Right.
And a part of that is taking responsibility. Um, I think a lot of it can be ego driven as well. And I see this all over the place of people letting their ego say, this should be this way, or I should be entitled to this. Like it's a different side of
Mm-hmm.
kind of entitlement. Um, where you think things should go your way, and that's not how it works. It is how it is. And so I think that stresses people out. I think that leads to burnout of not being able to control stuff. And you have to do multiple things there. You have to learn to let go, for one. Like, let go. You're not in control. Just admit that. And then you have to look at what you can do. What action can you take? Especially in the realm of business, like, it's all about action. Like, people aren't lucky in business. I haven't seen it yet, at least. The people who win are the people who put the work in. And that varies a lot. Like, if you're on the sales side, it's like, okay, am I going to call one more person? Am I going to do one more follow-up? On the PR side, it's like, okay, are we going to talk to more media members? So it's really about, hey, are you doing the actions that are required to move you forward? And that takes some vision. It takes seeing the bigger picture. So focusing on those actions, I think, makes the burnout issue go away for the most part. It's hard to get burnt out when you're moving forward too. One of our old coaches talked about it in terms of momentum. And like, when entrepreneurs feel like they're in momentum, it's powerful. But like, when you lose that momentum and you're just like spiraling downward, I think that's another term for burnout. Okay, what can I do today to get in momentum is kind of the question there. And again, it starts with super simple stuff. Drink water. Like, hey, I had a glass of water. Check it off the list. I just had a win. So you get like the chemical reaction in your brain. I can't remember the chemicals. And it's those little things. And there's different ways to do that. It's like, okay, I want to start with the big thing and like get that done, and then like my day is a win. Some people like to start with the small stuff. Like, hey, I'm gonna drink my water and take my vitamins, and I guess that kind of depends on personality as what direction you're gonna go with that. But find out what's on that checklist.
I ask because I haven't developed the, I don't know if it's ability, but I haven't put in place safeguards to alert me when burnout is on the horizon. Right? So for example, like today and maybe one day last week or earlier, maybe one day last week, but for sure today, woke up 4 a.m. and I've been up ever since, right? And it's like it happened again last week, and so I'm not the typical 4 a.m. waking up type. If anything, I'll stay in bed until 1 or 2 p.m. As long as I have enough pillows and enough coffee, then I'll just lay in bed and I'll even work from the bed. You know, I'm at that level of, like, I suppose, comfort. You know, like it's not by choice. You know, for waking up at 4 a.m. But waking up like within a 7 to 10 day time span to wake up at 4 a.m. and then start working. If I had set up certain safeguards in place, maybe that could have been an indication that, hey, we might need to, I don't know, adjust our diet or step back a little bit, or, you know, I haven't taken that step, right, to actually put some safeguards in place to know when I'm starting to burn out. So that's what I'm asking that for.
I would definitely say the safeguards are the same thing I talked about earlier of accountability and community, having somebody there, a mentor. Like, those are powerful ones. But it can also just be you surveying yourself. Like, a very intentional way of stepping back is to say, hey, how am I feeling today? There are a lot of like journaling systems, daily planners. Like, a lot of them ask the question of like, okay, how did today go? Or like, hey, how do you feel about tomorrow? There's a lot of like variations on that kind of reflective question. And it's as easy as like, hey, was today a 1, 2, or a 3? Like 3 being amazing, or you do it either way. Or like today was 5 stars. That's easier to put out there. So like, okay, was
Mm-hmm.
today a 5-star day, 4-star day, or 1-star day? Like, okay, if it's a 1-star day, then you need to look at your priorities for tomorrow, because it's fine if you lose one day. Like, it's fine, but you
Mm-hmm.
can't
Right,
lose
right,
tomorrow.
right,
Like, so
right.
you have to figure out, all right, what are my priorities for tomorrow? What's on the top of my list? And say, okay, I'm going to set the intention of getting this thing done so that I get back into momentum so that I don't
Mm-hmm.
continue this losing streak.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that momentum thing is gonna be my takeaway from this conversation. So just a quick detour here then. Um, what is your absolute earliest memory as far as you can remember?
Uh, wow. Um, I remember my grandma's house super early on. It I don't have a great recollection of like my early childhood. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I do remember grandma's house early on. I remember like being in the car one time. I know that's super
Mm,
random, but like I remember
yeah.
being in the seat of the car and with my mom. And I have no idea how
Mm.
early that was, but it was before school. I know like
Uh,
that's the thing I can definitely take and say, okay, this was before I went to school, and
yeah.
even before preschool. Um,
Wow.
so so probably one of those two. Um,
Mm.
but
So so that's age wise is probably somewhere 3, 4, 2
yeah,
maybe.
somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, because I do remember my first day going to the preschool. Because I remember like, oh, this is awesome. It's a big area to play in. I had
Mm.
a couple before that, but it's hard to like play switches first.
Right, right. Do, do you recall if you had any what do they call it? Like when you have a, let's just say, a favorite song when you were little.
Oh no, I have no idea.
Okay.
I
Okay.
I remember. I think it was like Christmas. We both got like CD players for our
Mm.
rooms, and I remember like a lot of those early CDs. Half of them were mixtapes or mixed CDs, and it was
Yeah.
downloading it on. Uh, I guess it was Napster first, like downloading
Mm.
the songs from Napster, burning a CD, and like getting the tunes out there. So
Okay. Okay, man. I remember still listening to songs in them cassettes. You
mhm.
know.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Mozambique, and so by the time cassettes were like a thing of the past here stateside in Mozambique, that was a fresh thing, so
That's
having to spin the cassette around to rewind and everything, and then
That's a good reminder
we're
though, because I remember in my mom's van, she had
mm,
like 4 or 5 different tapes, and like we would just listen to those tapes,
yeah.
uh, cassettes. And Billy Ray Cyrus was one of them, and "Achy
Mm.
Breaky Heart" always asked for "Achy Breaky Heart." So
Okay, okay, wow, awesome, awesome. Listen, we're coming to the top of the hour here, and I wanna touch on the family aspect of this,
okay,
right? Because at the end of the day, you're not creating a business, you're not creating a good and or a service so that um, you can eat a better food, right? There's a bigger reason behind that, right? Right. In your case, you got a couple of mouths to feed, and there's passion behind the goods and services that you offer, of course. But as we touch on the family side of things, how how are you approaching balancing work and family? You kind of touched on it already, right? Because like you and your wife are in this together,
right.
on
So
multiple levels, of course. Yeah.
I have to disagree with a lot of people's perspective on work-life balance. I don't think
Okay.
it's something that you balance back and forth. I think that when you need to spend time on something, you spend time on it and you're intentional with that time. And then you find, okay, what are my goals? How do I get there and work backwards and do what's required? It goes back to the
Mm,
action piece. Like,
yeah.
absolutely, we want to raise amazing kids, but we know that them seeing us work hard, that will instill in them the almost desire to work hard also, and to achieve amazing things. A huge part of it is helping other people too, and we're again, it's not lucky, it's very intentional, of building a business in a way that makes a good impact in the world, by helping a bunch of other businesses doing the same thing. And we want our kids to see that. So rather than work-life balance, I'd say an integrated, intentional life is really what we focus on.
Okay.
Our current mentor is, he has a set rule of, hey, I'm going to spend a minimum of 30 minutes with my family, every day. I'm pretty sure that's the number. And I think that's awesome. Like, hey, you have your minimums for the different areas of your life, but like, okay, now that leaves you with 10 hours of other time where you can intentionally focus on something. And some days that's the family, and on some days that's the broken car, or on some days it's hiring somebody new. So there's a lot of different things that time can be used for, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah, the kids are all still pretty young, and so
Yep.
It's mostly keeping them alive at this point. But we've had a lot of conversations, and continue to, about, okay, how are we intentional with their lives? And I just got the second book that I need to start reading. It's called The Daily Dad by Ryan Holiday. Yeah. So I'm excited to start that one. And it's, gosh, I honestly see this as a problem with like American society of just parents not being intentional. And that is what we see as the bad example. So we want to go the other direction and be very intentional with our children, to try and set them up to have an amazing life. So.
Okay. I liked it. And this might be one of the last topics here. Probably not a fun one to dance on, but I feel like you just touched on American society and some of the values that we carry, and this is one of the values that we don't carry, I think, and that's we don't talk much about failure. So can we touch on the role of failure as far as, one, influencing your ability to be a leader and or a follower, depending on where you are in this equation, but then also within the confines of the family life, right? Failure is just not something that we yap about that much, and I feel like we're doing a huge disservice to ourselves, but also for those that come after us.
Well, I'll start with, you have to fail in business in order to succeed. Like, it's going to happen. Right. And I'll also take it back to sports. We trained to failure. When we were in the gym lifting weights, we trained until we failed. Not every single set, but
right.
A lot of times that last set was like, all right, go till you fail. And it shows you where your limits are, because you're going to fail eventually on that squat rack.
Right.
But you don't want to fail that last one. You want to finish it. You want another one. And I think that's a powerful thing to carry over to business, is go until you can't. You kind of have to ignore working hours. The next hour you can still produce, but there's going to come a hour where like you're going to mentally break instead of physically breaking, like in the gym. And that's not like having a mental breakdown. Not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying, like, when your brain shuts off and you say, all right, I don't need to do this anymore. And I don't think people realize that that's the level of effort that you have to put forward in business. Because there is somebody else who's going to go that extra hour, and they're going to take that client or whatever it is. On the family front, I think this is a huge reason we like the homesteading community. Is it's a lot more realistic to life. And you see the life cycle of things. You see the animals and the plants, and eventually they stop. And I think a lesson in failure can be taken from that. Of you're going to continue going until you can't. And I'm glad our kids are going to grow up seeing that. But trying to think if yeah, there's probably something else on the family front. But they do see us work, so they'll see us fail at certain deadlines and projects and in the sales process. So
yeah, what good questions am I not asking? I gotta kind of kill my ego here.
Here's another one on failure of PFG, Publicity for Good, is not the only business that we've started. And Signal Raptor is brand new for the software front, not counting that. But we have 10 or 12 other businesses that we've had in the past that have not succeeded. And that's an aspect of business that a lot of people probably don't talk about, is like the number of failures outside of the one that worked.
Right.
There's very few people who start with project number 1 or LLC number 1 and make it work. Like even Zuckerberg had a different site that I think got shut down. It wasn't quite like Facebook, but it's normally not number 1 that works out. So I think a lot of that is the past. So I think we should look forward, and the world is like crazy in the way that it's changing. And I think a lot of people haven't woken up to how much things are going to change in the next couple of years. And it's just years. It's not 5 years. It's not 10 years. It's 2, maybe 3 years. Robotics are exploding as an industry. They've been working on it for a long time, but now things are getting there. There's going to be massive disruption in so many areas of the economy because of that. There's going to be massive disruption because of AI. Like, everybody does recognize that, but I don't think they understand how much. The bigger thing on that is like the massive kind of leaps in compute that will generate. So I can't tell you exactly where it's going to end up.
Yeah.
The lesson that we can look back to is every technological advancement, people have caught up, but it's way better if you're one of the earlier ones. And so take that moment, step back, look ahead instead of looking back. Also very valuable direction to look, and say, all right, how can I win here? Like, what do I want? How can I get there? Still applies. But looking at the world, I missed a massive opportunity in 2020 because I wasn't paying attention to the world. And so I had all this knowledge about investing already and different things. And I just missed the opportunity because I wasn't paying attention. And so make sure to look ahead, look and see what's going on, look and see where things are going to lead. And it doesn't have to be your ideas. Like, all of this information is out there, and you're just trying to find something that's in alignment with what you want, with your skill sets, with your beliefs, and saying, okay, this is where things are going. I'm going to do this part of it. So much in life, you don't have to come up with the idea. You just have to find the idea. And that takes a little bit of effort. So
takes just a little bit of effort, man. Just to beat the horse there on AI, I think you're absolutely right. That I think you'll be synonymous with the early days of internet, when everyone thought it was just to send an email, right? But then it got overhyped, right? Too much, and then the bubble popped. But then we know what the internet is today, right? So just because the bubble popped, it didn't mean that the importance of internet and how transformative it would be in the near future, it wasn't true. And I think that's the same case with AI, but on a whole different scale.
So
Yeah,
I agree with you that like the internet massively changed society and like how we operate. Um, but I think the industrial revolution is actually a better comparison because you had massive migrations with it. You had people moving out of the country into the city to take these factory jobs. And I think that's a huge thing that happens with AI is entire like ecosystems, for lack of a better term, are disrupted where they just don't exist anymore, where horses aren't
yeah, yeah,
around because we have the
right,
car.
right.
Like that kind of disruption in where people live, how people live, I think that's more on the scale of how this goes. Um, and
Right,
I'm not discounting what the internet's done because it's actually
right,
like
right,
it's
right.
helped tremendously on the wealth front. Um, but there's like, what's the crowning achievement of the internet? I don't want to say this, but it might be social media. Um,
Oh, geez, no, no,
yeah,
no, no,
like think about it.
no, no,
Like, whereas the crowning achievement of AI could be like, who knows? Um, it,
it's too
it
far out there.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
automated space travel. So
Jeez. Yeah. Hey, this has been a great conversation. It's crazy that an hour has already come and gone. Um, but any if people want to learn more about you and your business, where do they find you?
LinkedIn is an easy place. Austin Holmes is my handle on there, and check us out at publicityforgood.com, and that's the majority of it. Yeah,
Publicityforgood.com. Austin, thank you so much for coming to the Moses Kabandana Podcast and sharing some of your amazing knowledge here. Thanks for dropping in again. Happy Monday to you.
it was awesome. Happy Monday, man.